What if the home you're showing this week could make your client or someone in their family sick? On this episode of the Wellness Real Estate Podcast, I'm talking with indoor air quality pro Stacy Beasley. He's a former military officer turned mold detective, and we're diving into what every agent needs to know about hidden toxins, sensitive clients, and how to spot red flags before they turn into health nightmares. If you care about your clients and you want to stand out as the go-to agent who's not just the real estate expert, you're also known as the agent who leads with care, then this one's for you. Okay, well, welcome, Stacy. I'm so excited to have you here. Stacy Beasley is an indoor air quality professional with Springfield Quality Services, and I'm just excited to have you here to talk about mold and talk about indoor air quality so that we can educate agents a little bit more and they can help their clients better.
Well, good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your business and how you got started in the indoor air quality business.
I think I fell into this business. It was never on my radar growing up or even going through school. I am by trade a military officer, and I got out of the military in 2015. Then I got this phone call out of the blue from ServPro of Carthage, Joplin, and they had recognized that I was out of the military and they wanted to incorporate some military experience into their project management job. It was there at ServPro that I met a gentleman by the name of Monty Sowersby. Monty was an old school mold remediator who stopped his mold remediation business and became a mold inspector. Him and I became really good friends because I was past military, he was an ex-Marine, and we hit it off really good. We talked through 2 or 3 years. We just talked off and on about jobs, and he would come to my jobs and grade my work, and I would follow his protocols. And he would assess what we've done and would pass or fail us. One day, I said, "Hey, what can I do for you? How can you teach me?" And he says, "I have a better offer for you. Why don't you buy my company?" And the reason is that he had cancer and he only had a couple years to live.
Mhm.
And so that was all news to me. So we sat down and worked out the deal and we purchased the company. Unfortunately, Monty has passed, but we have, I think, carried on his legacy pretty well.
Yeah, so tell me more about it makes sense to me that the protocols and being in the military, having strict protocols with something as significant
Mhm.
as mold would be very important. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Well, we take great pride in our protocols. Not many mold inspectors out there are going to dig down and write a good protocol for our remediation contractors. But we understand that a good protocol will benefit the mold remediator as they follow through the process, and in the end, will benefit the homeowner as well. Boy, a lot of mold inspectors just come in, set air samples, and leave and give a lab report, and then the mold remediator is kind of on their own on trying to figure out what to do, and the job really never goes well, and we see that clients are sick, much more sick after the remediation than before. And so we pride ourselves in that protocol, and we believe that our military experience has helped us narrow down a very specific, a detailed, focused protocol.
Yeah, well, so if, a realtor is listening to this podcast and they are wondering, mold can be such a scary topic. It can
Mhm.
actually, you want to educate your clients, but you don't want to scare them off from a property.
Correct.
So, how should they handle that if there is mold or if there's questionable areas? How can they educate a buyer without scaring them about mold? Or should you be scared?
Yeah. Yeah, good question. Well, I kind of work from the definition of what a healthy home is, and
Mhm.
I help my real estate agents understand what I believe a healthy home is. I believe a healthy home is one that is environmentally safe and structurally sound. And so we're the ones to come alongside of them to help them understand what an environmentally safe home is. And of course, that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It could mean that one of their clients needs a home that is mold safe. It could be that a client needs a home that is VOC safe. It could mean that a client needs a home that does not have a lot of pet particulate. But we work from that definition there to kind of build out for our realtors and our clients on what their needs are.
Well, I feel like this is such a big issue. There is a growing number of people with chronic conditions. It seems like there's more and more people who are getting mold sickness, and I just How big is this issue, do you think, and why are agents not really talking about it?
Well, I've noticed an uptick after the COVID debacle hit. There seem to be so many more people calling us to investigate their homes for mold or other indoor air quality issues. In fact, we do anywhere from 40 to 60 healthy home assessments a month. And so it is a big deal. And I don't know how to we've been trying to communicate this to realtors. If they're not in this world or living kind of in this realm that we live in, it's hard for them to understand and recognize this. But through our education with our local realtors, we're trying to help them understand that there are actual people who are what we consider are mold sensitized or sensitive clients that need a healthy home for
Mhm.
them. And so what we do for the realtor and is that we offer what's called a healthy home inspection. We come into the home pretty much like a home inspector, but we're focused on the environmentally safe factor of the home. And we go from top to bottom of the home looking for anything that pertains to mold, water damage, VOCs, formaldehyde, and we do a thorough search of that home for anything that could be of a concern for the potential client. But we've already talked to the client and we know what their needs are, what they're looking for. And so now what we're wanting to do is to educate the realtor on speaking to the client like we would speak to the client, asking the questions to the client that we would ask to the client so that they'll have a better understanding of what their client's needs are as they're helping them find a healthy home.
Yeah, so could you share some of those questions that you asked the client or that the realtor should be asking?
Yes, I have. I've written just some questions for realtors, but these are the same questions that I ask my clients before, as we're talking about what their needs are as they're looking for a healthy home. One of the questions is, do you have any health concerns that influence your home buying experience? And that really opens up a lot for us because we begin to talk about the children, talk about any issues that the children may have or the female or male clients may have in the home that they may have Lyme, may have PANS or PANDAS, they may have SIRS, whatever it might be that they have that they are concerned about that may be a negative influence on their home buying experience. So we ask that question, do you have any health concerns that influence your home buying experience? We also ask if they have any sensitivities to VOCs from paint, new flooring, carpet, etc., because it is these things that can also exacerbate someone's asthma or allergies.
Mhm.
We ask also, do you have any allergies to dogs or cats? We look for that in a home. We look for past or historical pet particulate behind baseboards because we know that dog and cat particulate can be allergenic.
Mhm.
We also ask if they have any allergies to certain vegetation. Um, we found often that in our healthy home assessments, when we're looking at a home to determine what is making a child sick, especially with eczema, we look at the exterior environmental factors, such as here in Missouri, we have cedar, oak, and fescue that are highly allergenic and can exacerbate eczema. So we take into consideration those things when we go to the house and look around and see what's outside. We ask if carpet is a no-go for them because some people are very sensitive to carpet, and we have always preached no carpet at all. We find that many of our clients respond very well or much better in a home with no carpet. We ask if they're EMF sensitive. This is a field that is not, I don't know if studied much or I just don't know much about it, but there are some people who cannot live around power lines. And so we ask that. So we'll take note of that when we go to look at the home. And then we often encourage them to purchase a home with a slab over a crawl space if they are mold sensitive.
That's just because more bacteria and mold can get in the crawl space versus having a slab.
Yes, especially here in Missouri. Missouri is a very wet environment, and unfortunately, these our homes are built over wet ground, and the lumber that is put over the wet ground is typically wet itself. And so we find in brand new homes, before anybody's ever moved in, we find crawl spaces that are devastated by mold growth.
Oh, wow. So I feel like the common knowledge with indoor air quality is most people say just get a HEPA filter and change your HEPA filter every, 3 months.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing from you is that that's not everything that you should do. There's a lot more.
Exactly. Yeah, I just got off the phone before we had our phone call with a new home buyer. They've only been in the home for about a year, and they're experiencing some pretty significant allergies. What we find in some of these new homes is that the builder or whomever is involved in that process has not had the HVAC system cleaned. And therefore, the HVAC system will build up with sheetrock particulate, which contains mica, talc, and sheetrock dust. And so that is very highly allergenic as well. And so we always recommend that before you even move in, that you have that HVAC system cleaned and all your horizontal surfaces cleaned as well.
If someone is allergic to pets and they're wanting to buy a home and there were pets in there before, is that a no-go? Can you get that stuff out or can you just have your system cleaned?
It might be a no-go because some are so highly sensitive to the cat and dog particulate that it distresses their system. So we really pay attention to what's behind the baseboards because that's where a lot of your pet particulate will build up. And then especially there's carpet because that pet particulate is going to stay behind on that carpet. It's very hard to clean up, especially a cat particulate or cat saliva. It's very sticky, kind of stings, it stays around for a long time and can cause a lot of issues. So it may be a no-go for some people.
Wow, even if you replaced all the carpeting, got hardwoods and replaced the baseboards and cleaned out your air system, it still could be there?
Very possible, depending on how many, animals are in the house. We see homes with a lot of animals and a lot of cats
Mm.
sometimes. So if you just have one cat or one dog, I don't think it's that big of a deal. But some of these homes have multiple pets.
Yeah, and we're talking about someone who's highly sensitive as well.
Correct.
That's why it's
Yes.
important as a realtor to start asking some of these questions because then you can help them better. So let's say, agents are going into homes and they're showing homes, and these are, you're not going to find on the MLS anywhere that will say if pets have lived there or not.
Exactly.
But
Right.
what are some maybe some visual red flags that they could look for if they are showing homes to some sensitive clients?
Uh, I often encourage my realtors to lift if the floor registers are on the floor. If it's not a slab and if it's a crawl space, you're going to have your floor registers on the floor,
Mhm.
and simply lift up those registers and with a flashlight look at them because those registers are going to hold a lot of particulate, especially pet particulate. They even may have mold on them, and if they do have mold on them, that's going to be another issue of why those registers have mold on them. And they can even take their phone camera and drop it down into the supply pipe and get a pretty good picture of what's in that supply pipe. A lot of times we find that these flex lines in homes have not been cleaned for a while. The HVAC system is out of balance and they will start to build up with mold. And so certainly look at the HVAC system or the HVAC registers and supply pipes. If they're feeling a little curious and brave, and they can find a baseboard that can be drawn back. You just reach down there and draw back that baseboard and look behind it with your flashlight. And it's going to tell a story of the house.
If they do see anything, a realtor's not going to be a mold expert. They can't say
Mhm.
that what that is, but they could say this is something that if you love this home, we should just
Right.
talk to the inspector about.
Mhm.
Can those things be remediated or they be cleaned?
Certainly, they can be cleaned. I often tell my realtors that I'm not here to kill the deal. I'm here to work for my client and make sure that they have a healthy environment. And
Mhm.
so we always recommend a protocol. The problem we have is that the seller doesn't necessarily want to follow through with the protocol. A lot of our sellers think that mold sick people are not real or being ridiculous. I've
Mhm.
even heard them called crazy. And so they don't want to follow through with a lot of our protocols to sell their home. If they do follow through with it, they don't use our recommended remediation contractors. They're going to find a remediation contractor who thinks I'm halfway crazy and the protocol is halfway crazy, and that they're going to do it as they see fit.
Right. So I guess in that instance, if you are representing someone who is highly mold sensitive or sensitive to any sort of indoor air quality um, irritant, it would be best to just see what you could get. money-wise knocked off the price and then go get your remediation done yourself so you know it's done.
Exactly. That's where we find the win a lot of times that they will negotiate how much it's going to cost to get this done and they'll split the difference a lot of times. But I've also had some home buyers who really love the home and the seller was not flexible and they went ahead and moved forward with the purchase and remediated the home before they moved in and are doing very well.
Yeah. Well, so how does an agent know when they're showing property or when they're in their inspections? Let's just say something kind of they weren't expecting kind of comes up in an inspection. What are they looking for? When would they know that they need to call a mold specialist?
Um, the tools that I often teach my realtors to possess are first your nose. Everybody's got a nose. Typically, everybody's nose works fine. Some noses have been damaged by COVID, but you have a nose. As soon as you walk into the home, what is it that you're smelling? We often hear that somebody, we'll be told by realtors, well, we walked into this home and we smelled an old people smell. Well, it's not an old people smell. It's typically mold growth and it's typically aspergillus and it's typically found throughout the house because older folks generally don't clean as well, don't have as great eyesight. They may keep the house maybe a lot cooler than it should be or a lot warmer, and it really disrupts the indoor equilibrium with the RH and the temperature, and therefore aspergillus will form. So use your nose. What do you smell? And is that a red flag for you? We also ask them to use their eyes. What are they seeing? Are they seeing a lot of cats and dogs? Are they seeing any type of water damage? Look under the cabinet, especially the kitchen cabinet. See if that flooring under the kitchen cabinet has been damaged or maybe even replaced. Look under the plumbing, the vanities in the bathrooms. So use your eyes and use your nose. I've often heard this too, that the realtors will tell me, I know there's mold in this home. I didn't see it, but I had a physical reaction. My lips began to tingle as soon as I walked in the home. And so there are some people who respond to mold as such. They'll get tingly lips, a runny nose, a cough, or they'll even experience dizziness. So if you have any of those abnormal reactions in the house, that's a red flag.
Well, and it is a serious issue because I'm working with holistic realtors or wellness focused realtors who have these sorts of clients. And when a listing agent gets upset, why are you calling in extra mold people or whatever? They will say to the listing agent, look, I have someone, this is a life or death issue for them. They need a healthy home. And so I'm not scaring them. They're just very concerned about this and they want to go the extra step because they can't, some of these people have had to move out of their home, live in a hotel or something because they actually know that they're getting sick in their home.
Correct. A lot of times I find that I'm dealing with that type of client that they've been living in a hotel, they've been living on the run, they've been living in a tent or a camper, they've abandoned a home that was really making them sick, they've abandoned all their contents. And so it is very beneficial for the agent to have a heart of concern for them and to express empathy for them and to try to understand their situation. They may not believe everything. But you don't have to because it's not your experience and it's not where you're at. So just understand you've got to meet this client where they're at, understand what's going on in their life and to fight the good fight for them to progress forward. Because what we find too is that when we're called and we come into the picture, oh no, we've got 5 days left before we got to get all of our inspections on the table.
Well, so let's just say someone who's listening isn't in Missouri. How can they vet a mold inspector? I mean, I'm assuming they're not all the same. And so how would they know someone's really understands their stuff and is a good mold inspector?
Yeah, good question because that's the cry we hear a lot online in Facebook groups is that there are no good mold inspectors, or the mold inspector just came in and set air samples, didn't look around much, or the mold inspector thinks that we're crazy, therefore they didn't bear down in the home and really look for things for us. There are a couple options. They can always go to the ACAC. It's an accredited organization for mold inspectors. Hopefully, they can find a good one there. You can go to that site and look for mold inspectors in your area. Also, the ISEAI, I don't know the acronym, I don't know what the acronym stands for, but that is a great site as well to look for mold inspectors who are tuned in to mold sensitive or sensitized clients. So
Okay.
those are a couple resources to look at. you can always too, if they can, link into a functional medicine doctor in that area, because typically a functional medicine doctor is going to have themselves a good mold inspector that they rely on for their clients.
Mm. Yeah, and that's so true. And I loved that because you were telling me before that when you had first started this business to get leads, you went around and did healthy home inspections for functional doctors.
I
So maybe
did.
we can
Mhm.
talk more about that.
Yeah, we offered free inspections to our functional medicine doctors and to show them how serious we were, how thorough we were, and the type of reporting data that we can provide for them. And that has exploded into a huge client base. In fact, 90% of my clients now come from functional medicine doctors. And so I always encourage the realtors, if you can, get in with a functional medicine doctor, take them to lunch, get to know who they are, what they do, be curious, ask them questions, and then let them know your heart and your concern for these mold sensitive individuals, and let them know if they ever run across anyone to link them up with
Yeah,
you.
because I do find that so many of these holistic realtors have had the experience themselves, like they were mold sick and
Mhm.
they went to go buy a home and nobody could help them. And so they were like, I'm going to become a realtor and I'm going to, I'm
Right.
going to help these people who desperately need not just empathy and know that it's a real concern, but have the connections and the network and the knowledge to be able to at least make them feel comfortable that they're making the right decision or right purchase.
Correct.
What kind of support and empathy do mold sensitive buyers need that most agents just don't even think to offer?
The agent needs a heart. They need to have empathy for that individual. I think there's still a wide array of agents out there who think that mold is ridiculous, mold is not a concern, and they often say mold is everywhere, so it's going to be in the house, so no big deal, and or that they think that these mold sensitive people are crazy. That's the term that we hear a lot when we're talking to our realtors, and it's trying to help them understand that there is a people group out there who are actually sick from mold, and therefore they should learn more about them and get to know what's going on in this world. And hopefully that their heart would increase for these people and that they would be able to approach them with empathy. But they need a heart. They need, don't be afraid to ask questions about it to understand where they are in their journey.
Well, I just spoke to someone who is actually a functional nutrition counselor now, but I guess she moved from Arizona to California, and she said that she was living in this rental home and it was completely clean, and she never thought about mold basically because she was a very clean person. But there was this leak in the bathroom that kind of was there, and then they would wipe it up and it would go away. And anyways, everyone in the home started getting sick, and the kids were seeing their pediatrician, and she was seeing her doctor, and her husband was, and they had different symptoms, so nobody kind of picked out that it was, maybe they were getting sick from the same thing. And it was a year or a year and a half later when her doctor kind of pieced it all together and said, "Oh my gosh, do you have mold in your house?" And she was like offended almost. She's like, "No,
Yeah,
my place is very clean." And she goes, "No, no, 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 moisture." So they opened it up, and I don't know which mold it was, but it was like the worst case they had ever seen in the bathroom. And she got so sick. She was in a coma for 4 months and had to have part of her lung removed. And now when she goes, and she said she had to do hyperbaric chamber, and that was what brought her back. But basically, she said that anytime she goes into a house, it's like she's a mold dog now because she can just she can't go into used bookstores either because their
right.
mold can be in the fibers of the book. And so she can smell it, and she'll know that the mold is there. So it's crazy
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, that well, good for her. Unfortunately, she had to, the pathway to that is
Mhm.
sad, but at least she has this sixth sense about her now. And
Mhm.
we often find that with people who have been exposed to mold. I think I have become more like that as I've been in and out of moldy homes. I think I can look at somebody now and tell if they've had mold exposure in their home.
Really?
Just their face, their demeanor, the way that they carry themselves, listening to if they've got a constant cough or sneeze or runny nose. But yeah, we find that a lot, and that happens. That once you've been exposed, you can sense it. Um, uh,
Yeah. Well, and it
something
is
like
so
that
interesting
before.
because I do think some of the symptoms are could be lots of other things. So you just mentioned that. I wonder, what are some of the symptoms that people should be paying attention to if they're become chronic, that maybe it's their home that's making them sick?
Well, what I call the minimal symptoms would be the coughing, sneezing, runny nose.
Okay.
People want to attribute that to pollen, especially in Missouri this time of the year. However, we will just skip over pollen and start looking for mold in the home because we believe that that's more or less the case in their situation. What we also find is that people will talk about brain fog, uh, being tired all the time, joint pain, headaches. So we listen to that and understand that that is a potential mold exposure symptoms. I often I've got a really good RN who sends me people, and she'll send me people who have dementia. She goes, "This person has mold in their home. I know it," and she's been right 100% of the time for the past 5 years. So,
Wow.
so she looks for things like that.
So can that be kind of reversed if if it's mold exposure and they're getting brain fog or even dementia and they get rid of the mold, does their cognitive ability come back?
I don't know enough to speak on the dementia,
Mm.
but I do know that we've had so many success stories that yes, once once the mold has been remediated or any other issues in the home have been taken care of that we've noted, that are seeing people get better. One of our cases that it just made our heart happy is that we had a little girl here in Joplin who was constantly sick, in and out of the doctor's offices. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. We go in the house, we do some air sampling. We find that her bedroom and the master bedroom where she sleeps had a very high mold spore concentration, not necessarily from actual mold growth, but from what was in the carpet.
Mm.
So we asked them to remove the carpet. They thought we were crazy. They did remove the carpet. We got a phone call that told that, and they said, "Hey, thanks for your advice. We didn't think this was going to happen, but we've canceled all of her doctor's appointment. She's a happy, normal girl now."
Oh my gosh. Okay, that leads me to the question though. Say someone puts in hardwood floors all over, but then they want area rugs. Isn't that
Mhm.
similar to, having
Yeah.
carpet? I mean, you
It
still.
is. It's very similar. We do, and people think we're crazy. They've been told they're crazy all their life, and then we come in and they think we're crazy. But we will show them. We use technology called the Instascope, and it gives me on-site multiple concentrations using biofluorescence technology. And so we're able to show them with their area rugs and with carpet, just walking over an area rug, how it stirs up so much particulate. However, the dilemma is in a lot of these homes, they've got little children, and the little children, they want a safe place for that child to land when they fall over. But we encourage low pile rugs over heavy pile rugs if they're going to have throw rugs.
Right. And what about like the natural jute or sisal? Are those a better option? I've always heard wool is better than synthetic just for
Mhm.
VOCs and that sort of thing. But is that going to be better for cleaning and not having mold, the natural fibers?
The natural fibers on, you mean in the carpet?
Yeah, and the carpet
Yes.
or air like throw rugs and things like that.
Yes, come to think of it, now that you jarred my memory, I remember sampling a room in a home that had wool carpet, and
Mm.
I was pleasantly surprised by the results that I was getting. It did not respond like other rooms with carpet. I could not get hardly anything to kick up out of that carpet, and the
Mm.
mold spore concentrations were very low.
Wow. Okay, then that's good news. And I just had another conversation with the Green Building Design Center founder Andy Pace, and we were talking about wool carpets, and he said, don't
Mhm.
just look for wool carpet. Make sure it doesn't have that synthetic backing because that can have formaldehyde and stuff in it.
Oh, certainly, yes. A lot
Mm.
of the carpet does. There's what is there, 128, 148 chemicals in our
Yeah.
carpet, include fire retardants. So not so outside of the whole mold world and particulate, it's just I think it's a hazardous material to even have in your home. But
Okay. Well, all right. So if we're not talking about mold, we're just talking about general indoor air quality.
Mhm.
What are some things agents can just kind of educate themselves about besides just changing your HEPA filter? What are some things that they could recommend to people, or what should they know about indoor air quality that can just on a simple level help people?
Okay. Okay, so we did talk about the HVAC system and how it should be cleaned prior to moving in,
Mhm.
and making sure that filter has been changed. But other things that they can do, and we've talked about carpet as well. We encourage folks to, to take care of the carpet, get rid of it if they can. But other indoor air quality things that they can do is open up the house, let the house breathe. Remember what grandma did. Grandma didn't have or great grandma, maybe we should say now, but they didn't have central heat and air, and so they just left the house open. And we find that a lot of our homes, one of the things we look at in our homes when we do our healthy home assessment is the carbon dioxide buildup. A pattern that I see in our unhealthy homes is a high carbon dioxide, either because of type build or type build and occupancy. And with a high carbon dioxide, it kind of what we call it just slows the air down. It becomes like a stagnant pond, and therefore everything that is in that air you're more susceptible to.
I would
And so
think
we encourage,
indoor
yeah,
air plants maybe would be, sorry to, but maybe indoor air plants,
yeah,
indoor
plants. I
plant.
haven't studied that much, but plants may provide some benefit. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So they would, to encourage you. I don't know if this is the realtor's lane or not, but I know it's our lane. We always encourage them, hey, open these windows, let the house breathe, especially have a high carbon dioxide, and especially, and I think I've read a little bit about what you've said about this, and I think I know your opinion, but spray foam insulation. We
Mm.
find so many sick people in spray foam homes, and it's sad because they believe that they're going to be getting the best of the best of insulation, and it really tightens down that home. And not only that, we found that that spray foam is off-gassing. We'll have people living in spray foam homes with nosebleeds, headaches, dizziness, brain fog, all these symptoms that are similar to mold we're finding in spray foam homes.
Oh my gosh. And so it can off gas for years. So no,
It can, yes, it can off gas for a long time. We have one company here in the Springfield area who is they're testing their spray foam. They say they test it once a month, and it is to ensure that it's only off gassing for 12 to 24 hours. So it's one of the only companies I recommend in the area for spray foam. But most of the I just don't know. I'm not a spray foam installer, but I just know from my reading and understanding and what I'm seeing out here in these homes that if this spray foam is not mixed well, it's going to off gas for quite some time.
even
And
if
also
it's
it just
behind the
creates a
walls,
bit.
it's still off
Yes,
gassing.
it's still off gassing, because we've done VOC sampling, and we've taken core samples of that spray foam insulation and done a VOC sample and matched them together. And that
Wow.
stuff is in here. Yeah,
Well, but you can't, if you're building your own home, you can say don't do spray foam insulation.
correct.
But how would you know if you're just buying a house?
Right. Yeah, you're really going to have to ask the builder because if it's in the walls, you're not going to see it. If it's not in the attic, you're not going to know. And so you're going to just think that there's normal insulation. We will find some homes that have a normal or the average attic insulation, blown in insulation, but there's spray foam insulation in the wall. And so it's hard to see. You might be able to see that spray foam insulation if you look under the plumbing and can look past the plumbing access hole and see if anything's foamed in or not. That might give you a clue that the
But
walls
that's
have.
generally for newer construction. If a home is an
Correct.
existing home and it's
Yeah.
older, they don't need to probably have a concern
Newer
about that.
construction or flipped homes. So a lot of these guys are starting to do the spray foam and flipped homes.
Okay, well, so then what do you recommend? I mean, do you have any other tips for agents that they should know about for indoor air quality or like some takeaways that they can have if they were listening to this?
Yeah, well, I wanted to continue to talk about tools for realtors because we
Yeah.
discussed their nose and their eyes and their physical reactions. Those are all great tools to have that you don't have to carry a kit bag with you into the job. But also the seller's disclosure. What did the seller say happened in this house? Was there did they disclose water damage? Did they disclose mold damage that was cleaned? If they did, then goodness, you really need someone like myself to come on board and really check out that house to see if that water remediation was done correctly and if the mold remediation was done correctly. They can also purchase a good flashlight. I think one of the best flashlights on the market is a stream light, but it can also be used as a weapon because it's so bright you can you can blind your opponent if you needed to. But that stream light flashlight will really I think it magnifies, it really lights up mold growth when it's shined on it over and under other flashlights. When you're doing that with the flashlight, you typically want the lights off in an area, and you want to not shine it directly at a wall or cabinet, but shine it, point it downward to see if anything comes about. We also encourage our realtors to bring with them to the job a hygrometer and a moisture meter. If they are showing a home during the summertime and the AC is operational, and they bring their hygrometer in, which is measuring the relative humidity, if the relative humidity in that home is over 60%, we know there's a problem with the HVAC system, and we know that there is a strong potential for aspergillus mold growth. And we also encourage our realtors to take the moisture meter that has a surface probe and go around to all the toilets because the home inspector does not do this. And this is where we find a lot of our problems in these home purchases is that the wax seal around these toilets are leaking and nobody has ever identified that. And so it'd be good to do a moisture test around these toilets to see if they've got a wax seal leak. So those are some of the tools that I encourage the realtors to have.
Great. So then maybe you can explain a little bit more about the humidity. Like, what is a safe humidity? And what if you're opening the windows and doors in the summer and it happens to be
Right.
humid? Is that a good idea or not?
Yeah, I keep my home open in the summertime. A lot. I do monitor my relative humidity indoors, and I don't allow it to stay over 60% for 2 or 3 days. Then that's if the humidity outside is very wet, I'll eventually just close my windows. But I still sleep with a window open in my bedroom at night simply because I like to sleep under a very low carbon dioxide
Hmm.
instead of a heavy one. And so, yes, you can open windows in a high humidity environment. You just don't want to keep them consistently open. I've done a lot of Amish homes, and of course, Amish do not have central heat and air. They leave their windows open all year long, and goodness, they've got so much mold. They've got so much aspergillus throughout their homes on that. Um, anyway, what was the question? I
Well,
lost
just what
track.
is a safe level of humidity in a
Oh,
home?
okay. I think the EPA recommends 35 to 55. If you could keep about a 45% relative humidity, I think that's good. If you are concerned about dust mites, and you should be concerned about dust mites if you aren't, we know that dust mites can really thrive in a high humidity environment. So getting that humidity below 50% will rob those dust mites of moisture and not keep them around long.
Wow. Okay. So what does someone put in their home to reduce humidity? Because it's not the HVAC system.
Right. If they have a humidity problem and they want to maintain a consistent relative humidity, they're gonna install a a humidifier. No, I'm sorry, a dehumidifier to their HVAC system to try to lower that relative humidity.
All right.
We and on that topic as well, we find that a lot of problems in homes is a humidifier. The realtor may want to look at the HVAC system, and if they see that external box that is a humidifier, be very concerned because we find that those humidifiers, especially in homes with senior adults, they'll turn those humidifiers up to 55 and 60%, and if they have internally lined ductwork, it's going to fill up with cladosporium.
Wow.
It just does. I mean, we see it all the time, at least once a week with those humidifiers. And so be very concerned if you see a humidifier, find out its use, how often they've used it, see where the settings are set on that humidifier.
Why would someone want a humidifier? I guess when my kids
Yeah.
were sick and they said, you'd put a little humidifier in the room just to
Hmm.
help them breathe
Yep.
better. Is that why someone would install one in their house?
Yes, they do. Maybe a sales pitch from the HVAC contractor to make a little extra money on the side. But what we find is that the older folks, uh, in the wintertime, their skin is a little bit more, it
Wow.
dries out more easily
Hmm.
and is itchy. And they call the HVAC contractor and they said, hey, we got just the thing for you. We're going to put this humidifier in. And then they turn it up to 55 and 60%. Unfortunately, in those cases, we have seen aspergillus in those homes on every bit of content and cabinet when that occurs.
Wow. So then, I mean, how do you get rid of it? You have to just completely remediate the, like, get
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
cabinets.
Yeah. On the house, the aspergillus is typically not. It's cleaned easily. It looks like dust. In fact, the home inspectors, I've seen that home inspectors have noted it as dust when it's actually aspergillus mold growth. It wipes off easily on non-porous contents.
Okay.
If the house is thoroughly affected and you have porous contents, we always recommend that those should be thrown out, and not. It just wastes money to try to clean them.
Yeah.
Carpets would go, and then it's a wipe down of that entire house. Yes.
Wow. Well, this was amazing. I'm so excited that agents who are now listening to this can just have a little bit more knowledge about indoor air quality besides just changing your HEPA filters. And hopefully
Yeah.
they walk away realizing that there are a growing number of people who are getting sick in their homes. And so if they can just educate themselves, they can be a better resource and provide more value to especially to these people. Is there anything else you want to add that you would want an agent to know or that I remember you saying that you're still looking for, more of a holistic agent to partner with in your area.
Yes. Yes, we are. We live here in Southwest Missouri. We cover all the what's called the four-state area: Joplin, Kansas, Arkansas, or excuse me, Missouri, Kansas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. And so we are looking for someone who would take that mantle of being a holistic realtor that we could partner with, work with, train if necessary, and help them understand what we're doing so that they can be a benefit for their client. And I don't know, if I'm a realtor, in my thinking, I'm like, why not? Why wouldn't you want to do this? Because who's doing it in the area? And you need to find something to set yourself apart from other realtors instead of just another pretty face on a billboard
Mhm.
with your realtor name. Well, what good is that doing? Why not have a billboard that advertise that you're a holistic realtor and you are here to help your client find a healthy, safe environment for them? Why wouldn't you want to do that? Especially with the movement that we are now under with make America healthy again, and people are understanding the trouble with food dyes and other things that are within our world that can make us sick. And so it is also with mold. People are beginning to understand that mold is a problem in the home. And I don't know too, it could be because of we're starting to see an increase, especially in this area, in Lyme disease. It seems like I talk to somebody every day who has Lyme disease or has alpha gal, which it comes from a tick. And so those with Lyme and alpha gal tend to respond negatively in a home that is water damage and mold growth.
Wow. Yeah, and it just seems like people are getting, I like to think of it as like we have this bucket, of our immune system does, and we're filling it all the time, and eventually it just gets kind of so full that it's overflowing, and that's when we have disease. So if you can do everything you can just to kind of empty out the little bucket, remove
Yes,
toxins, removing stress in your life too, eating the right foods, that kind of reduces the stress on our systems because our body does really want to heal. But if you're sitting at a mold-rich environment and you're eating, bad food and you're stressed out all the time, like
yes.
just the perfect storm for disease, right?
Yes, it is the perfect storm, and we see it a lot. And part of my conversation when I go in and do my healthy home assessments, I get pretty personal with the folk. I like, what are you eating? Here's some education about mycotoxins in food, and um, anyway, we talk. I get pretty personal with them, I'm not trying to be their doctor, but just bringing some knowledge to the fight that I have for them to help them understand things a little bit better.
Well, and it's so true because I do think like if they haven't heard this before, they might think that you're crazy. But if they went to go talk to a doctor and a doctor or a functional doctor who would know more about this, tells them the same thing, and then they talk to a realtor who then asks them the same questions, they're probably thinking, oh, okay, this
Right.
indoor air quality does matter.
That's right.
And I have a child with asthma and I want them to be able to breathe. So okay, so what if someone has had the mold inspection that comes with the home inspection and the buyer moves in and they're getting sick or something, but they had a mold inspection. How
Yeah,
do
I'm glad you asked that because that is a problem that we see often. We run across buyers who had the home inspection and then they purchased the additional mold inspection with their home inspection, and so they thought they were good. They moved into the house and they start to get sick. We show up at the house and we find all this mold, and they're dumbfounded. They're like, well, we had a home inspection and a mold inspection, but what they only had were air samples that were set by a mold inspector, or excuse me, by a home inspector. And air samples don't tell the whole story of a home. In fact, typically air samples may not even pick up or identify a mold problem. You've really got to know how to use those air samples if you want to pick up mold that is going to represent a potential problem in an area. And so the air sample comes back to the home inspector. He or she has no idea how to interpret it. They simply hand it off to him and said, it looks good. Lab said it was good. And then so they think that they now have a mold safe home, which is contrary to the fact that they
Mm.
typically do not, because there's generally here in Missouri, there is a lot of mold in our homes that goes unrecognized by the home inspector.
Well, is all mold bad?
And that's a great question because I
Mm.
get asked that all the time. People often talk about Stachybotrys, right, as being, or the black mold as being the evil mold that will destroy lives. I've had two clients pass away from Aspergillus mold contamination. Aspergillus has a species attached to it called Aspergillus fumigatus that is known to promote farmer's lung disease or aspergillosis. And typically, when we get those calls, our client is already in the hospital.
Mm.
They're on a downward turn. They're immunocompromised, and the doctor has said they have mold in their home. And so we go out and certainly we find a lot of aspergillus in the home. So my number one mold that I don't like to see in a home is at high levels is aspergillus.
Mm.
Um, Cladosporium, we see cladosporium a lot in contaminated HVAC systems. Cladosporium is not a toxigenic mold. It is allergenic. All species of it are. Um, but yeah, we don't want to see Stachybotrys or Cotomium because they too may produce what's called a mycotoxin, and we've got to be very careful with that because those mycotoxins can disrupt the human system.
I've also heard that you shouldn't put bleach on mold because that actually just stirs up the mycotoxins. And so,
It can, yes, and it can make that mold grow. I think one of the saddest stories that I ever encountered, a widowed lady, she had mold in her bathroom. And she said, if I get this right, she had said for over 5 years, she had been spraying bleach on that mold and it continued to progress. And every time she'd spray it and it continued to progress. And then she would leave her exhaust fan on in that bathroom, of course, to exhaust the bleach odor. And I still think to this day that that mold issue in her bathroom caused this huge mold contamination in her attic because I'm confident it put all those spores, got exhausted up, and then they don't die because bleach isn't killing them, and thus they landed in her attic and caused a huge mold problem. And she had to have her whole roof system replaced.
oh my gosh, I do feel like that's the biggest myth out there is that bleach
Yes, it is.
kills things.
Yep, every day.
Really
Not
do.
only that, yeah, with especially landlords, because that's what landlords want to come in and do. They just spray bleach on it and they tell the client that they're good, and you can still see the mold, and then it
Yeah,
just goes back. So,
right. So, and it's definitely not doing, what could someone do? What if it's just that little bit of mold that's in the shower? Is that something to be really worried about, or can they get rid of that?
yeah, on the shower caulking, typically what I found, if that's what you're referring to, the
Mhm.
shower caulking, that it's typically cladosporium. Cladosporium is non-allergenic, and it can be, I think. What we do is we just recommend that you pull all that grout, all that caulking, excuse me, and then and replace it. Or you can take some hydrogen peroxide and a little toothbrush and scrub it off there and
Okay.
be set. But yeah, that's a problem, especially in tiled showers. We always, when we're looking for homes for our clients, if they want a healthy home, we're really pushing for a home that does not have a tiled shower because they're always going to be a problem. Not only you're cleaning mold from the grout constantly, or they're prone to leak. They're not put in correctly. We just see so many problems with those.
Well, but you, in older homes, sometimes they didn't even have fans in the bathrooms. So
Correct.
you should
Yes.
at least put a fan in your bathroom so that,
Yes, every bathroom needs an exhaust fan some way, somehow. We are dealing with a home right now that there's no way to put an exhaust fan in that bathroom. It's an 8,000 square foot home. It sits in the middle of the house and trying to figure out how to vent that bathroom exhaust is incredibly difficult. So we're working with them, trying to think of some options that they can do because they do have a lot of mold on their ceiling from
Mm.
their teenage hot showers that last forever.
Right, right. And that don't need, no one turns the fan on. And you're supposed, Andy Pace
Exactly.
was
Yep.
just telling me that you should have the fan on at least 30 to 40 minutes after you shower. Well, thank you so much, Stacy. I appreciate your time. And how can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about your company? And do you help people that are outside of your area?
Yes, we do help people outside of our area. We've been to Illinois and Iowa, and of course, way out in Oklahoma and way down in Arkansas. We do get calls to see if we can travel further than that, but it's pretty expensive for us to go. But we will go if they want us to come out. They can look for me on the web at springfieldqualityservices.com. There, they can reach out to me, contact me. You can find us on Facebook at Springfield Quality Services. You can log into my personal Facebook page, Lee Beasley is where I'm at on Facebook. I post a lot of stuff under my personal page. It's hard a lot of times to post stuff about what we do online because you're dealing with people's homes, and a lot of people don't like their home online when we're talking about mold or other things. And so we try to be very discreet about how we post things and how we talk about things.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I so appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great day.
But you as well. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you learned something new that will inspire you to think about your branding and how you can market yourself a little differently. If you enjoyed this episode, then you're going to love what I have for you because you don't need to wait to go get extra certifications or to grow and expand your network to get started attracting those new leads right now. You can simply begin by talking about wellness real estate trends and what you've learned on this podcast with others. I mean, this is pretty interesting stuff that no one has heard about, and I have all the tools that can make it even easier for you. Wellness Real Estate Magazine is a brand new wellness lifestyle magazine, and it's the only magazine that brings health and home together. We educate readers on industry trends and how to create a healthier home environment, written by industry experts around the country. And we have 3 covers to choose from: Wellness RE, Healthy Home, and Wellness at Home, so you can easily find one that aligns with your unique brand and messaging. These magazines are the perfect done-for-you tools that help you not only stay top of mind, but they educate and engage your audience, which positions you as an industry expert. Differentiate yourself and grow your brand the easy way. Learn more at healthyhomemedia.com.